Hello, everybody, and we are here with another episode, Love It or Shove It, and it's all about unrequited love, coping with one-sided love feeling. And today, I'm with co-host Bruno and our guest, Marla. Marla, thanks for coming and tell a little bit about yourself.
So great to be here. And I'm a public speaking coach, but I'm not normal. I'm not a normal public speaking coach. So, yay. And so, what I do is my mission is to help you speak up and speak so people listen and speak so you connect with other people. And what I love about this, I'm also a life coach. I'm also an art of presence trainer. And what I love about this is that it helps not only in your business and as a speaker, but it helps in your personal life. It helps in all of your relationships, which is so rewarding for me and so helpful for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's just dive into the topic. I'm sure that we all experience that, one-sided love in our life, because our life is all about the life experiences, right? And like I always say, we always learn the lessons, and we are here to experience all types of emotions. So for our own growth, right? For our own benefit. So let's share some of our past stories and what actually, the benefits that we see out of that. Marla, share something from your past. How did you experience that one-sided love, and where did it take you?
Yeah, it's amazing I made it this far.
That's a good one. I love it.
Just like how many times, I can't even count them, how many times that I just felt devastated when I felt like either someone didn't care about me the same way I cared about them, or a relationship ended. And thank goodness, with age, I have so much more confidence and so much more wisdom, and now I make better choices too. So I was really intelligent, but I didn't always make the best smart choices. Maybe some of you can relate to that. And I'd say when I was a lot younger, yeah, I would, if someone really loved me and I, had fun and I was really excited and passionate and about, how that spark happens in the beginning and that chemistry, I was so drawn into that I sometimes forgot about some of the other aspects of a good relationship. And, oh yeah, there was too many times like that. And, it's so interesting because we do get attached, and sometimes it's because you need to have this love. And now I just know I don't need to have that love. I am love. I can be love. I can love myself. I can give myself love. And there's so much love around. And so I don't, to not be so needy is really helpful in a relationship. But it takes some growth to get to that point. And then the other thing too that I'd say about me is I'm a super positive person. So I always see the good in everybody. And that can be a weakness too, because sometimes, people would say, you're banking on their potential, not on their reality, and that also can really hurt a relationship. So it's, what do you have now, and is that what you really want? So I can go on and on and on about that, but I'll take a break so we can have a conversation just about those points alone.
Woohoo! Beautiful. Love it. Bruno?
Yes, I totally relate to that. I mean, like, I made my mistakes, and and I don't know if I'll make more. Hopefully not. Hopefully, I have learned with my mistakes, and at the same time, I believe like you gotta have some boundaries, right? I mean, that's the whole thing about not being needy, right? It's like you're not needy because now you have boundaries and you respect yourself too much to not open up. And even if you feel shameful and embarrassed because you actually believed in yourself and you gave yourself a chance, right? Because you gave yourself a chance, still insecure, but you still chose to give yourself a chance with all your insecurities. And then, right, because and that is bravery, right? You really are courageous when you give yourself a chance, even feeling that fear, because fear is always there, right? It's not like you always want to have a beautiful life without fear. No, fear is there. You have to act without being afraid of what's going to happen. And then you feel embarrassed, and you feel shamed, and you feel guilt, and then you're like, oh, well, could I think this? No, 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 no. But you end up always kind of going back to, all right. Actually, I talked about this, I think, some episodes ago as well. Always going into the self-reflection mode of like, what actually happened for me for this to not go right. That is so important, right? I think I think self-reflection is super important. Like you don't have to talk to other people. You can talk to yourself, right? Like talk to the walls, right? Yeah, the walls are not going to reply back, but that's all right. They're not supposed to reply back, right? I mean, you don't want them to reply back. You just want to be in your own space, and you want to sort of reflect enough, right? And you want to learn with what you did, right? And if you don't want to speak, they write it down, right? I mean, but always constantly, continuously learning about your mistakes is gonna save you of so many problems, right? My father used to tell me this all the time when I was a kid. He used to tell me, the real donkey is not the one that doesn't know. The real donkey is the one who knows but doesn't do. Or let's put it in other words, the real blind person is not the one who is blind, is the one who knows, right? That is blind, and doesn't do anything about it, right? Yeah, and I think like always learn, get your ego aside of you, right? Like let your ego away from you, right? And learn, right? Open up your spirit and just like, right, emulate your self-love. And I believe that with all my heart, really. Irina, what do you think?
Yeah.
Oh my
Awareness
God.
is so important. Oh, go ahead, Irina.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, because we are kind of talking in general, but for me, I want to share the story because Bruno just brought it up. He's like, like even when we feel embarrassed, still give yourself the credit for the courage, right? And that's exactly what I wanted to share. So I think I was like 17. So I was watching this guy all the time from the window of my building that I used to live. And I remember I was like with my girlfriend, and it's funny how things sometimes work in the world. In the world, it's like I didn't even pay any attention, but because she liked him, I started to pay attention. I'm like, yeah, he's very handsome guy. Like before that, it was just like blank. It didn't even, like occur to me. And then all of a sudden, I just started to develop the feelings. Like I didn't talk to the guy, nothing, but I keep seeing him every day passing by my windows, because there was a road that was taking him somewhere. And each time I was like getting more and more, like interested in him. So then I grabbed another girlfriend that I had and I said, listen, we have to do something about it, right? Because I didn't know his phone number. All I knew that he was living in the building next to ours. And I found out which apartment he was living, okay? So I told her, you have to give me the courage, let's go together. And, you're just gonna ring the bell and you're gonna call him out of his apartment. And I'm gonna just talk to him. I'm just gonna say that I like you and let's have a date. And imagine that we've done it. It was a pretty cool experience. Like the guy so shocked and surprised, but it was fun. So we decided, and I said, I really like you and I would love to go out with you. And the guy was literally older than me, maybe 5 or 6 years, right? I don't know what was in his thoughts, but I remember, I said, okay, let's have a date. And we made, the time and the place where we are going to be meeting. Obviously, I already, pre-planned for everything in advance. So I go home and I was like thinking about it, and I'm listening to all this romantic music like for all these days, already like fantasizing, thinking like how beautiful it's gonna be. Like, like I feel my heart is like beating, hard and everything. And what happened? The day that we were supposed to meet, he never showed up.
Oh no.
That was such a heartbreak for me, right? And then I was like so devastated. I was like, how could he do that? Why is this happening to me? And obviously it was like some time of like a little bit of crying and thinking about it, and like why things didn't turn out the way they turned out. And I remember then I wrote like a huge letter to him. So I was like going all the way out, just like to figure out, are we like really on something, or it's like the dead end. But it taught me a lot, right? Like, okay, we go through some suffering, like like we put ourselves out there, like we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, right, in the moment. But first of all, it just proved the point that I'm very courageous. I just go after something that I want, and I was very happy about myself. Never ever I was disappointed or saying like, why the hell did they even do that? Never I ever had this thought. I was actually very happy about what I've done, and obviously it taught me a lesson, right? To be courageous in life, to go after something that I want, and to ask exactly for what I want. So it was a pretty interesting experience, Marla. Do you have anything like that to share with us?
Oh gosh, I don't know in a relationship if I can think of a time that I did that. Certainly in business, I've done that. I've reached out to people that, you could say, well, I don't have the credentials to do that, but I talk my way into a lot of things. But relationship-wise, I would say not really. But I think that that's really important, that that's the lesson you took from that, because especially at that age, it'd be real easy to say, oh, I'm not good enough, or, people kick themselves for weeks sometimes because they didn't say one specific thing, or they didn't say something just right, or how they had planned it, and they get so uptight about themselves. Whereas you just went, well, didn't work out. That's okay. I'm so proud of myself for putting myself out there. So that's amazing, especially when you're younger, because I do feel like when people are younger, the relationship is everything, right? You're sort of career oriented, but a lot of times it's the relationship that means so much, especially, in high school, or, 17, 18 years old, as you get a little bit older, than that, that evens out a little bit better. But, what's really important is that if your relationship isn't going well, then it really affects your work, and vice versa. So they're totally intertwined. And that's why I talk about, as a public speaking coach, I'm also a life coach, because I want to really help people with their personal relationships and their business at the same time, because they're not inseparable. And relationships, can really take a lot of energy from you. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I've been through many times where I probably wasn't as courageous as you, didn't have the esteem that you had, because I'd say in more circumstances, I would be devastated I did have some no-shows, people that I didn't care that much, but if I really cared about somebody and they didn't return it, then it was tough. And I'd say that, I could get pretty depressed about it. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of listeners out there can relate to that. Whereas, you do take it personal, and you don't just say, well, at least I tried. No, people don't have that wonderful attitude that you have. Most people, and not everybody, certainly, but a lot of people will be, oh, it's something about me. I'm not good enough, or, or I didn't do the right thing, or those kinds of mind chatter that is not helpful. And that eventually we move through that as we have more experiences. And, that's certainly how it was for me as I, went through my 20s and 30s, and even 40s and onward, I got so much more confidence and the ability to really look at relationships more with awareness, like Bruno was saying. This was so important what you were saying, Bruno, about having that self-awareness, because most of us are on autopilot and we're distracted by a million things. We're in our head. We tend to behave like we used to behave because that's what we know, and we don't have that awareness and take a moment to reflect and say, well, how could I be different or do something different, or what's really going on? What do I want? Not what's coming at me and what am I going to accept, but what do I want to create? That's huge.
So true. So true. Bruno, do you have any story to share?
I mean, well,
When you were rejected, right? We are talking about, like, the story. It's not necessarily to be courageous, but just, like when you felt like one-sided love.
yes, yeah, for sure. With my ex relationship, basically. So, well, I was, like first loves, right? No, fantasize, and like you suddenly want to marry them and all that crap. And I went through the same thing, obviously. And I actually had the courage and the delusional mindset at 17, which was a bit delusional. I mean, I was 17 for Christ's sake. So to put myself in a long distance relationship, right? 2,000 and like 600 something kilometers away from each other. So I was 17, she was 19, I think. And it's funny because like today I know it would never work, but like when you're so blindly in love, it's just like you think it's like, oh, we can do anything and all that. And yeah, so it happened, and like a month, 2 months after, we quit, right? And I truly felt one sided. And it's something that you were saying, Marlo, very well, which is how we take it personal, right? I took it so deeply personal. I remember so well. I took it so deeply personal. I wanted her to feel the same that I felt. Because I felt injustice. The injustice, right? The not fair, unfair, injustice, right? And we use so much of our ego, and our ego makes our belly feel so full and so satisfied, because nobody sticks up for ourselves, but the ego is always there, which basically gives us no guaranteed winning, but it does give us that feeling, which we're so low in our life that for us is just enough. We just want to have something, feel something that makes us feel some sort of justice when actually nothing happened, but you're still feeling it, right? And you just want to have some winning, something that shows that you matter, and that something that shows that like that somebody either cares for you or that you care for yourself, right? And that reflects a lot on low self-esteem and all that stuff, right? Things that school doesn't teach you. Nobody teaches you how to boost your self-esteem unless you have a life coach, right? Or unless and yeah, I think like one-sided situations are truly a little bit they're odd and they're awkward for the person who's experiencing them, because then you just feel confused, right? And manipulation in situations like those are very easy to occur, because almost everything we do in life usually is embedded on a pattern, and as well as in that pattern, if you don't know that you have that pattern, but the people who are watching from the outside do know that you have that pattern, people are most likely either going to tell you that you have that pattern and like, have you realized that you always do this? Or they're not going to tell you anything and they're just going to take advantage of you simply with that pattern. As long as you don't find out, they're going to take advantage of you, right? So it's one of those things where you always have to be careful. And again, self-awareness, right? You have to be self-aware, right? You have to be aware of your patterns. You have to be aware of your behaviors and stuff. And I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people end up staying on one-side situations um, because they're so used to being in that situation. It's like they become addicted to the feeling, right? Like I only found out this a long time ago. You actually can get addicted to stress. Like you're so stressed all the time, you don't even know how to live without it anymore. So you always look for situations where you can be stressed. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it's like, like it's a journey because, like, again, like, and just so I can wrap my part up now, so I can pass it up for somebody else. I think like no matter the shame or again the guilt or the embarrassment, right? You have to always love, like, fully love yourself at all times. Like it's almost like a pact and a promise you make with yourself, which is no matter what happens, I'm always going to love myself, and even if the whole world is against me, I can't, right? Because the whole world is not my savior from the depression I am or from this one-sided relationship, right? I am, because nobody's going to do it for me. I need to do it for myself, right? So yeah, so
You know
you're going to
what
say
it
something.
brings me? It's just, first of all, I think if we never had this kind of, like trauma in these relationships, I should say, right? But we are talking about, you just gave an example where you were in relationship. So that person actually had the mutual feeling up until, a certain point. But we are talking about, like, for instance, like people just know each other and one person falls for another one. So this is the type of scenario we are talking about. Like, how do you deal when you have more than just the friendship, or you have more than just, like knowing that person, when you really start developing these feelings and you know that these feelings are not mutual? How do you live with that? How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? That's exactly what the conversation is all about. Everybody knows about the trauma, like with the love and relationship. It's like part of the cycle, we all go through that. But we also, I think that everybody also goes through that experience where they were attracted to somebody and they didn't, the other person didn't reciprocate. That's what exactly
Yeah, I
we
mean,
want to discuss today, right? So and I'm sure, like you mentioned about self-love, exactly, that's when the self-love starts to develop. When we go through these hardships, when we go through the moment when, we get rejected and our feelings are not reciprocated, that's the time for us to, like go within and, either experiencing all these, sorts of emotions where we cry. And obviously I'm talking about it like jokingly. Of course I was crying, of course. But the point is, it's, like I'm just, like, for me, the life never stops, never, no matter what, right? So the point is just like always to be able to reconnect with yourself. And, self-love, I think, is emerging from the situations like that, because then you understand that, like you cannot depend on somebody else's feelings. You have to be present for yourself, right? And another thing that I wanted to mention also, when we go like from one, like side to another, because I also experienced the other way around when I felt only friendship relationship, but other people developed, romantic relationships towards me. And it was interesting to be like, like on both sides. But because I already knew what the experience is, for me, I always was very cautious not to hurt another person, because I knew already how it felt to experience that pain. That's why I was always like very, like cautious. And the interesting factor is it has nothing to do with the looks. Like, I had this classmate who was like crazy about me and he was so good looking, but I just didn't have any, like romantic feelings towards him. Like we were living in the same building, we were going to the same classroom. I was friends with his sister who was younger, and we like spent a lot of time together, like three of us. But like I never developed anything but friendship with him, although he was very good looking. So it must have been something on the energetic level. It's just like you either have it or not, and it has nothing to do with the looks. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great conversation because I was focusing a little bit more on like relationships that broke up. But I hear what you're saying. What do you do if you have an interest in somebody and they don't return that from the beginning? And how do you cope with that? So what Bruno was saying about self-love is most of it, but there's a lot of other things you can do. So, you know, really it's part of it. It can be timing. It could be it just wasn't right for that person. So to really, you know, first of all, get off the idea that it's you. It's probably not you, right? There's nothing wrong with you. It's not about that at all. And to say, well, what else could it be? It could be timing. It could be that, you know, maybe you're a little too much for that person. Maybe they can't handle you because you're so complex and so high energy, or, you know, who knows? It doesn't have to be that you're not good enough and that, you know, they're this great person. You know, we have chemistry for different reasons. There's a lot of things that, you know, we can't explain in words. How that, even the good chemistry, right? When you do have the chemistry, you can't necessarily explain it in words. It's your energy, like you were saying. It's this connection that is so deep and so different. It's nonverbal. It's this wonderful, which is the best connection, right? And so it could be timing. It could be that, you know, you're a little too much for them. It could be that there's just something in the chemistry that isn't quite right. It could be they're not ready. It could be, you know, they're still stuck on their last person and they haven't quite gotten over it yet. So they're not ready to take the leap. There's so many possible things it could be that have nothing to do with who you are. And so to really free yourself of that burden, because it's, you know, there's so many relationships out there and some of it's communication. So I focus a lot on, you know, how can you communicate well? And, you know, when I was growing up, I didn't speak up hardly at all. I didn't advocate for myself. It took me a long time. And so, of course, that bled into my relationships where I didn't speak up when I wasn't happy with something or speak up about who I am. And so that's important too. When you first meet somebody, are you being your real self? Are you speaking up and speaking out? Are you, you know, connecting, or are you holding back? You think, oh, I really want a relationship, but really there's a wall there. And to acknowledge sometimes it's your energy of how you present to somebody.
It's absolutely beautiful. I love it, Marla. So true. I agree 100%. And a lot of times I think people also get afraid to express themselves. And I always say the only thing to find out, I don't know, I was born like that. I was always fearless. I'm like, you know, for me to know, I have to find out. That's the only way I will know for sure. Otherwise, I would be just guessing, right? And a lot of times we are living in that guessing game because we are constantly, you know, like projecting our thinking, and our thoughts dictate the reality. Although sometimes our thoughts just our thoughts. It's not the reality. The only way to find out is to ask, right? So that's where the communication comes to the play. Bruno, I see you have something to say.
No, honestly, like I'm just listening. I'm listening. I'm acknowledging what you both are saying, and honestly, you're 100% right, both of you. Yeah, I mean, like picking up on what both of you said, Marla and Irina. Yeah, I mean, again, I agree 100%, and like, it's not about you, and you can never put, like, for example, expectation kills happiness, right? Like when you expect too much out of a situation, right? And then it's not like that, right? The disappointment just grows bigger. Like if you go something, like if it becomes one-sided and it hurted more than it should have, is because you expected much more than you should have as well. Like nothing was showing you that you, right? I believe, like in my past experience, and as well with things that other people told me as well, whether if it was with me or them, we both expected much more than what we should have expected, right? And I think that's something that, like, yeah, sure, you should, like, dream, and there's nothing wrong with fantasizing with a feeling, but you should always bring yourself to reality sometimes, because you're either too realistic, or like you're too delusional, right? And that may work when you're working with you. When it's the self work, being delusional, there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes being delusional means what? Dreaming about the things you want to be, what, like other people haven't done it before, right? But when you're dealing with another human being, the response that you want does not come from you, it comes from them. And then you're dependent on what the other person is going to say. And then you think about it, and then you expect it. And then depending on what you're thinking and the probabilities of what happened before, it then will dictate the possibilities that you believe truly exist in getting a yes or a no. But maybe you expect a no and you're going to get a yes, or you expect to get a yes and you're going to get a no. The bottom line is, like, don't create too much expectations, right? Just go into something with no expectations, just with the feeling of wanting to find out, right? Honestly, like, I'm gonna say this, and like, I don't think a lot of people do this. Please correct me, both of you, if Irene and Marla, if people actually do. But why not, like, when you get rejected, why not ask, can I ask you why? Or, like, obviously you don't have to ask, like, can I ask you why? Just say, like, if you don't mind me asking, why don't you want? Is it me? Is it you? What is it? Right? Just truly ask the person. If the person doesn't want to answer you because the person doesn't really kind of feel, the person doesn't feel open to talk about it, then the person doesn't respond. That's fine. If the person finds it awkward or whatever, or if the person finds herself or himself in a situation in a situation that the person has never been before, just by asking a simple question, right? The person doesn't answer, but the person feels comfortable to answer. The person will answer, and then you'll get it, right? And then, like, maybe you're not the person's type, fine. Or maybe, again, it's not about you, right? And if it's not about you, trust me, you should thank the person for not being with you, because the person will probably destroy you emotionally, right? You should be friends with that person, right? That's my take.
I totally agree with you. Like, I for it, like, to find out why. And I think the more, the years pass by, because it's all about life experience. The more time passes, the more comfortable people become to express themselves, right? And ask the questions why, and for the other person to explain why, right? But I think the most aware people and conscious people are the ones who could actually give the answer to somebody who got rejected right away. I think this is like the best way, like a level of awareness, because they know that once they say no, the person would be wondering why not, right? So the people who are aware and conscious, they would be the ones to shed the light and say why, right? And I think it's good because it serves that person to have some clarity, because our entire life we are seeking the clarity all the time, because nobody wants to live in the fog. Everybody wants to know where they are standing. And like I always say, it's better to have the bitter truth than the sweet lie, or, like whatever we are feeding ourselves with the thoughts, right? Just stop living from our heads and go into your hearts and discover exactly, what are the feelings, and how to actually be brave and face the reality, face the fear, and ask the questions that might be very uncomfortable, but the questions that are going to give you the answers. I think it's very, very important, right? And for what I understood, all these life experiences are given for us for a reason, just to learn the lessons, right? To learn the lessons, understand what is there for me to learn, rather than just being a victim in any given situation Just take it as a learning experience and understand something out of it. And obviously, it proves the point that we are so much more powerful. Like, dealing with all this devastation and love and, rejection and going through these emotions when we are crying, when we feel like the world is just, like not a welcoming place, where every morning is not welcomed, right? When we go like through these moments of dark night of the soul, that's exactly what's going on with us, right? This is the time when we learn how to actually harness that power that we have all inside of us, and understanding that this is the power that we can actually use for our own benefit, not just only in love, but in, like in finances and career and, in health and anything we want. Because we realize that there were so many situations in our life that we came out of these situations not even knowing how the hell we came out of them, right? It just proves the point that we are all so much powerful, and sometimes we forget about this, and we have to remind about this to ourselves and saying, no matter what coming out my way, I know I can handle it.
Oh, that's so important. And I love the idea of asking the question, because you're right, Bruno. Most people probably don't do that. They just kind of run away, or they cry, or whatever. And, when you ask that question, you're right that some of the times you're not going to get an answer, or you're not going to get the real answer, but it's worth asking the question, because it might give you some really good information. It might make you feel better. It might add some closure. And at the same time, it kind of puts you back in relationship, because you're having a conversation and a communication that is like a friendship. And, you might even go on to be friends with this person. Maybe not. Yeah. But it's worth asking. And it's really helpful to just constantly, as we talked about before, have that awareness and that growth when it comes to relationships, because it's not something that we have the manual for and we know exactly what to do. And it's a learning curve. And I would say, in addition to that, how else do you cope? I think it's really important that we continue to learn about ourselves and about relationship and how we are in relationship, and whether that's hire a coach, or whether it's go to a networking group, or go to a support circle. There's so much out there. There's so many choices of how you can show up and where you can show up, and and develop really close friendships with your girlfriends or your boyfriends, your male friends. I don't know how to say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Develop close relationships with other people that are, not romantic, but you need those connections too. Sometimes people get so tuned into, I have to have this intimate relationship, that they don't spend enough energy on their other relationships. And those are just as important and can be just as nurturing. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I love my besties, we've been together for decades and we share so much. It's an important part of life to have not only friends, but close friends. You don't need a lot of them, but you need that close connection with at least a few people. And that's important. And then do things that make you feel good. Do activities that you enjoy, no matter what it is. If it's going for a walk, or going skiing, or going, out to dinner with a friend, or whatever it is, do things that you enjoy, instead of, kind of just focusing on the negative of, oh, this just happened and I feel bad. You don't want to ignore it, but you don't want to get so focused there that you get stuck. So what else can you do to, there's so much good in the world. There's so many good people. There's so much fun you can have, and to really run towards that pleasure. And people talk about we run away from pain, or we run towards pleasure. That's kind of the two modes of operating in the world. And run towards that pleasure, even if you might have an obstacle on that way, or you might have a disappointment on that way. But run towards your pleasure as much as you can.
That's so beautiful. Bruno, do you have any advice how to cope?
Um, how to cope? Yeah, I mean, like, for example, self-love, right? Self-love is very pretty, very beautiful, but self-love is more than self-love itself. Like self-love is a mix of other components that can truly define self-love, like self-confidence, like self-loyalty, like yeah, self-esteem as well, right? That's all love that you feel for yourself, right? Like you respect yourself too much to not feel that way, which is also self-respect, right? So whenever something happens, it's like it's either their fault, right? Or you say, fine, I forgive myself. Or you never make it not only about yourself, but you never judge yourself, right? You always show compassion to yourself, right? And I think showing compassion to ourselves after losing someone or something is just, if not one of the most crucial important things in the whole, because it takes the pressure out of ourselves. And because like you're putting the person on a pedestal, right? Like you're treating the person like a god or a goddess. I mean, like there's no need for that. It's like, like there's 8 billion people in the whole world, and like the only reason why you like that person too much is because you just invested too much of your time in that person. No matter how much or how you actually invested that time, you did, right? And you have to find a way of letting go of that person's energy, or letting go in somewhere, somehow, or somewhat way. Because if you don't, then you're not going to change, and like you're not going to forget the person, or you're not going to forget what happened, right? And then standing up for what you believe in is like right, that's like when you stand up for what you believe in, like first of all, who does that? Like who like, right, in 8 billion people, like who stands up for what they believe in? Almost nobody. Everybody's afraid of everything. Everybody's afraid of what they say, and how their neighborhood looks at them, and how their family looks at them, right? And how what am I going to wear, and peer pressure, and this and that, right? So when you actually stand up for yourself, forgetting other people now, but focusing on you, when you actually stand up for yourself, you're being so brave and so courageous, and like it's not left unseen or unnoticed, because you are looking at it, right? You yourself, you are looking yourself in the mirror, and you're saying how brave you are because of what you did, right? Like now you are your own testimonial, right? You basically prove to yourself that you're able to do something, right? And you didn't need other people to show you that, right? And like standing up for yourself after getting rejected from a job or a place, in this case love, right? When you get rejected in front of a person, right? And it's all one-sided, when you expected too much and you fully believe that, oh no, I'm so sure he likes me, or I'm so sure she likes me, oh the signs are there, oh but she did this and he did this, and and he was playing this game or she was playing this game, like, but you don't know nothing until a yes or a no comes. You just don't know, right? And if you do get rejected, again, stand up for yourself, right? Be courageous, learn to let go, forgive yourself, or fully believe it's the other person's problem, and life will show you that it is, right? And again, like Marla said, and Irina was also agreeing and said it as well, and Marla also agreed, and we all agreed basically that it's not about you sometimes, it's about the actual person, right? I mean, you're making the person look like the person doesn't have any problems. Just because a person shows you her best attributes and how perfect the person can be does not mean the person can be perfect, right? So yeah, I mean, like, like at all times, stand up for yourself and stand up for what you believe in, like, and take care of yourself as well, because that's so important. Like, you matter more than the people that you hang around with and deal with, and no amount of love that you receive or that you give to others should be as big as the one you give to yourself, because in some people might seem this selfish, but there's no way you're gonna love other people if you don't love yourself, or you're gonna love other people more if you don't love yourself more, right? Because then all you're experiencing is dependency, right? So I need that person. You shouldn't need that person. You should choose to want to be with that person. Just because you want to be with a person, because you need a person. Like, what? Doesn't make any sense, right? I believe in it. Yes.
Okay, as far as for me, in terms of to add on what Marla was saying in terms of the, like how to cope with these things, and what Bruno said, Bruno mentioned self-love, and Marla mentioned like the whole list of beautiful things. And I also wanted to add to that is journaling. Journaling is truly helpful to kind of get your thoughts out of your head and your emotions out of your body into the paper. And it's really very beneficial for us because we have to process all the emotions, whether they are good or bad, right? So if we do suppress our emotions, they are still going to be internalized inside of us, and sooner or later we are going to burst out. So it's better to process them in the right way. So journaling is very helpful. Do some self-reflection, maybe like ask the question yourself, how do I feel in this moment? How did I feel when I heard being rejected, right? So the more we are gonna write out in the journal, the more clarity we are gonna have, and the more calmer we are gonna become in the process. And obviously, very good to practice mindfulness, doing something for ourselves. For instance, I love spa. I would go to the spa. I would enjoy myself, right? Get my meals done, go for the shopping, right? Something that gives you the life, right? Like Marla said, do something that gives you pleasure, right? So, and it could be even, just taking a walk in the park or meditate, something that just, like actually help you to stay connected with yourself and get yourself calm in that state of calmness, and knowing that you actually can take care of yourself no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what somebody said to you, right? That you still can be in charge of your own life. So it's very important, and obviously it's a good time to pick up on the hobbies, right? Like sometimes you're just gonna ask yourself, like, what is there something that I love to do but I never got a chance to do? Let me just like sign up for this new class, or take that like cooking lesson, or like get into the community of like-minded people, and you'd be surprised because you might find somebody there. You might attract that love of your life right from there, right? So it's all about just exploring, be open to the experiences in life, be adventurous, and know that life is a journey and there is a lot of fun in it. And we are here to experience the happiness, the bliss, and to be the best version of ourselves. That's why we get all this boot camp, as they call it, right? To prepare ourselves to live the life to the fullest and understand that we are the ones to be in charge of our own happiness. And obviously, with more life experiences we have, the more equipped we become and more ready we are to tackle anything in a similar nature, with the completely, being skillful and having the tools to do that. And it's not scaring us as much as it was on the initial stage. So I just want to wish everybody a beautiful, beautiful day. And I hope you took some lessons, some interesting points for yourself, and know that we all have experienced that one-sided love, and it's not the end of the world. Just knowing how to deal it, how to process our emotions, how to go with the flow, and everything is going to work out for us in the end of the day. Any last words, Marla?
Yeah, I just want to say that this has been great. Just so much good advice. I love the idea of not just think of self-love, but think of self-respect. And to me, a big one is self-acceptance, to really accept who you are. And, and then Irina, what you were saying about journaling and so many other ways of coping, to me, meditation, and not this meditation where you can't think of anything, not that kind of meditation, but meditation where you just go inside your own body to where the essence of who you are is. I call it your home space. And to get in this place, and that's the purity of you. That's the essence of you. And it's not what you've done. It's not your identity. And to connect with that is just so empowering and so joyful. So there's so many ways to cope. Reach out if you need help. Reach out to friends. Reach out to somebody and speak up.
It's beautiful, right? And like you mentioned, like if anything, seek the counseling services or seek the coaches. Those are the people that are going to really, help you to process the emotions and move you to a different level of your life. Yeah. Bruno, last words?
No, yeah, just thank you both for being here. It was a great conversation. It was amazing. Both perspectives, all of us. I think, obviously, self-acceptance is a very, very good term. Because there's a difference between respect and acceptance. Like you can respect something. Okay, let's say like you can accept something, but not really respect it, because it's not something that you would respect it, right? It's not something that you would take serious. But I accept it. You want to do that, do it, right? And I think that self-respect and self-acceptance is but you gotta have both. When you're in a situation like this, you gotta have both. Because in my opinion, it's you're just going to simply accept that happened. Yeah, sure, you can do that, but you still don't respect yourself enough. Because if something truly happened for you to get rejected, even if it's not about you, right? I'd be like, you know what? That's fine. I respect myself too much to not cry, which there's nothing wrong with crying, by the way, obviously. But I respect myself too much to not get depressed, right? I'm not just going to accept getting depressed. No, I respect myself too much for that not to happen, right? So yeah, kind of my take. I think that's kind of my final words. And again, thank you so much for this conversation. It was awesome.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week on our other fun conversation. And stay tuned, participate, and we value your opinions. And see you next time.